Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about good versus bad emotions in terms of society's expectations. So really what I mean by that is there are a certain set of guidelines that we tend to live by in expressing or repressing our emotions. And that's what I wanted to talk about today. Understanding what society's expectations are, how can we navigate the boundaries that society has set up for us, and understanding exactly healthy ways to express or repress emotions in general. So first I wanted to talk about what the societal view is. And that's that there are good emotions and there are bad emotions. So good emotions are ones that people like to be around. Bad emotions are emotions that people don't necessarily want to be around. It actually makes them uncomfortable. So there tend to be a lot more bad emotions than there are good emotions. Good emotions can be things like happiness, pleasantness, joy, even sometimes sadness, because society expects us to be sad in some scenarios. And then there are the bad emotions, which is a starkly longer list than good emotions. So bad emotions can be like anger, frustration, stress, anxiety, wrath, fury, rage even. And there are things that society tells us that we can't allow ourselves to express bad emotions. So we repress these bad emotions because it makes others feel more comfortable. And when we do feel these emotions, these bad emotions, we tend to feel shame towards ourselves. It makes things easier for everyone outside if we keep these emotions inside of us, if we don't express these emotions. But the reality is that we can't just pick and choose which emotions we feel. We can't just pick that we want to be happy today, or we want to feel joy, or we want to be happy for longer periods of time, because that's not how our bodies work. You know, we can't just pick and choose which organs we want to keep inside of us. We can't say that, I'll take the kidney and the liver and everything else can go. It's a package deal, and it's the same thing with our emotions. And I think as a society, we tend to forget that. And we don't really know why that is, but it's just something that we do. It's something unconsciously that we repress. We repress these bad emotions so that it makes it seem like we're living this perfect life and we're never sad and we're never depressed or upset or angry. But each emotion has its own valid place in our life. And each emotion is essentially a message from our body. It's an internal cue, and it helps us navigate our lives. It helps us navigate our dreams, our visions, our goals. And it helps us develop and form and explore relationships with other people. So that can be relationships with your spouse, your child's peers, friends in your life. And there are so many ways that we need emotions to guide us. If we're feeling hesitant about taking an opportunity, if we're feeling nervous about going into an exam, I don't know. There are just certain scenarios where we need to feel emotions in order to guide us on which directions to take. But that doesn't necessarily mean that sometimes we feel too deeply into our emotions. And, sometimes they get to the best of us, because that happens. And later I'll talk about ways in which we need to repress and ways in which we need to express. And there's a certain level that we need to maintain, not too focused on the repression and not too focused on the expression, but something that balances the two. But like I was saying, each emotion has its own message and its own place in our psyche. So sometimes when we repress these emotions and we want to transform these emotions, let's say, by conjuring up another one into thin air, we end up confusing ourselves, our bodies, and our internal cues. And eventually we can develop this an emotional incoherence, so that we don't really know how to navigate and understand our emotions. And I think that's what a lot of people nowadays have come to realize. The biggest challenge that we face in society with this is that in our childhood, we're taught to stunt that emotional growth, and it happens around 5 years old. So at this time, the child is beginning to understand and learn various aspects of life, whether that be learning to read or write, or learning to behave, to listen, and understanding all of these different parts, but no one's teaching children how to manage those internal cues. You know, we're not talking about helping our children emotionally develop enough. And that's why society is what it looks like today. We are stunted in our emotional intelligence because of that fact, that when children are growing up and they need that emotional development, they don't necessarily get it. And it's not just the parent-child relationship, it's the teacher-child relationship, it's the peer-child relationship, and all of that is stemming from a bigger source. It's because we're all learning that emotional intelligence doesn't matter enough. Now, I just want to quickly jump back to the societal expectation that I was talking about before. I think what makes it so easy to abide by these views of society is that it's easier to make fun of someone crying or shame someone who feels angry. It's easier to pretend that we didn't get offended by someone's insensitivity. It's easier to shun our honest emotions so that they don't discomfort others. We always follow the easiest path because it's what's comfortable for us. As human beings, we don't like to be uncomfortable. Anything outside of our comfort zone is scary. It's the unknown. So we tend not to veer outside because we don't know what will happen. Basically, that's why we live with this view. We live with this view that bad emotions need to be shunned because it makes things easier. It's easier for you and it's easier for others. But in all honesty, we can't function as human beings when we repress these emotions. We can't decipher our dreams and our visions and our goals, and we can't navigate relationships skillfully if we're not talking about our emotions, if we're not being human and having emotions. And we can't identify our hopes and support others if we don't have these emotions. But like I was saying, that middle ground that you come to with repression and expression comes down to a couple of things. No, there are 3 ways that you can go. There is constant expression. So if you're in a situation where you've kind of trained yourself to develop these nervous habits, whether you consistently feel anxious or you feel rage, or you know how to navigate these emotions, essentially, your brain is very plastic. So it's kind of like learning a new language or learning to write or learning to read. It becomes second nature. So if you're in this constant state of expression with a certain emotion, your body's going to eventually learn how to do it automatically. Right? So that's why we have people that, develop that sort of bad temper, or we have people that are very emotional, the criers. But being emotional doesn't necessarily mean that you're having one emotion, because to be emotional, you are sensitive and responsive to all kinds of stimuli. It's not just having one emotion over the other. If you're emotional, you experience all of it. If you're in that constant state of expression, you're going to develop those kinds of habits that automatically get you into that mindset. And on the other side of it, there is constant repression. So that's, pretending like you're in this constant state of bliss or this constant state of happiness. And it can go on the opposite spectrum where you're constantly sad or anxious or depressed or things like that. And, you obviously don't want to be on those ends of the spectrum. So in certain situations, we need a little bit of both. So for example, there are times when we do need to repress our emotions. For example, if you're with a young child, a baby maybe, and you're feeling like a lot of rage and you're feeling angry and frustrated, we can't necessarily put that rage onto the child, right? But it's not healthy to just ignore that emotion completely. You can repress it in the moment and come back to it. That's ultimately being able to cope and manage with emotions, is having that ability to go back and fully feel into that emotion and just let it pass you. So that's what I want to leave you guys with. Just understanding that there is an expectation in society there is that knowledge that there are good and bad emotions, but it doesn't have to be that way. Emotions are emotions. They don't have to have a name tag. They don't have to be on one spectrum or another spectrum. They can just simply be. Being able to understand and acknowledge that we need these emotions to understand our internal cues, to acknowledge that they help us in deciphering our goals and our visions, and help us become adept at developing relationships with others and so many aspects of our life. But the one thing that I want to leave you with is that it always starts at the child. And I always say this in all of my videos because it really matters. The reason we have this societal view is because of the fact that we are teaching children at a very young age to stunt their emotional growth. And I think it's becoming much more prevalent and understood now and really talked about now because of the fact of, what our society looks like. Mental health is on the rise and all of that stuff that we're not addressing. But it's being talked about now, and it matters clearly. So that's what I wanted to leave you guys with. Also, I just wanted to quickly announce that spots for my one-to-one are opening up. So if you'd like to schedule a free consult, I'll leave that link down below. I'll also leave the link to my blog channel down below, and you can check out the article on this video as well. So with that being said, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you got something out of it. So thank you so much for watching, and until next time.